Alrighty, okay, now we're back on. Welcome to the 123rd episode of the Korea podcast. I'm your host Jack, located in Ulsan, South Korea. I'm joined today by Rhett Burton, who's smiling his ass off for a very good reason today. Today is the 19th of July, and my computer just decided to crash literally the very instant I was going to go live, which is why I've been trying to recover everything, and I think we're back online today. The Korea podcast. On the Korea podcast, I talk about everything and anything related to working and living in South Korea. Recently, there's been a very long lull in which I did not get to talk to anybody, but Rhett agreed to come on the podcast today. And the goal of today's podcast is to talk about the post-Covid ESL industry. Basically, we're going to talk about how our businesses are doing and how we think the ESL industry may, which direction it might take, I guess, after all that COVID mess is done and over with, if ever. So yeah, Rhett, welcome back, man.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, no problemo. Let me just check on my. Rhett, welcome back, man. Right. Okay. Fantastic. I can hear you, but I don't know if the audience can hear you. Right. Okay. Fantastic. I can hear you, but I don't know if the audience can. Right. I can hear you, but I don't know if the audience can. I can hear you, but I don't know if the audience can. Oh man, oh man.
Are we having a few issues here, or?
Yeah. Having a few issues in terms of getting your sound online, I think. Oh no, okay, we're good. You're good. Okay, I didn't hear you. Jeez Louise, see? It's been a while since I had anybody on the podcast, man. It's been a while since I had the system set up. Okay, good, man. Jack the janitor is here. I can hear him now. Fantastic. Okay, good. So you're heard, I'm heard. How are you, Rhett?
I'm busy as always, but in a good kind of way, doing what I want to do with some cool people, primarily iTDi, where we throw around different ideas for how to teach more effectively online, offline, and it's quite a learning experience, you know, going through different waves of COVID. You know, wave one was more about getting online, and now wave 4 is more about doing a much better job than what I did in round 1 and 2.
Yeah, right. Just to refresh people's in my memory, where are you located? You're in Seoul, right?
What's this?
Where are you located? In Korea?
I'm in Yongin.
Yongin. Where is Yongin exactly? I don't even know, to be honest with you.
Well, it's south of Seoul, next to Everland.
Okay, all right. Okay, so how bad is it down there, I guess, in terms of the lockdowns or whatever is happening right now in the fourth wave of COVID?
I'm going to be really honest, and I don't have a clear idea how things really are, because, you know, I just take advice from my wife, and I say, okay, which way are we going? This way or that way? I think we should go this way. If you agree, then let's keep going. And if she tells me elsewise, then we discuss it, and then we go the other way. But for the most part, I have my eye on the curriculum, on the online components, on the students' progression, and not so much about what is happening outside. Because I'm a study room, I don't really exit the house too often, which is a challenge. But I'm in a very private spot.
Did you have to shut down though? Like right now, are you closed? And are you teaching online?
This year we decided not to go, or not this year, but this wave 4, we decided not to go online.
Right.
However, that being said, we all have always been online, and I've been constantly improving what we do have online versus teaching online. So I make sure that kids get the links so that they can listen more, that they could do more online activities and whatnot.
Yeah, because last time I talked to you, which was a few months ago, you were working on a fantastic curriculum for your school, and you had a pretty good, solid online presence. So it seems to me like if you wanted to go online, it would just be at the literally a button move. At the switch of a button, you'd be back online. Whereas for other places like us, for example, I've always been, well, since the first wave, I've been toying and kind of trying to get online, but I never really, I never really set up anything centralized. So what we did in the first phase, I kind of improved a little bit on that, but it's still a, very much hands-on job. While you seem to have created kind of an online curriculum with like the entire curriculum online for your school.
Yeah, getting your curriculum online and getting it and working with different online tools is really, really challenging because there's a lot of different tools out there. And especially since COVID wave one, more and more companies, more and more startups, more and more tools have been made accessible to us teachers. However, that being said, with more tools, there comes more, shiny syndromes or shiny there's like, what's better, this or this? And you start comparing it, and suddenly you go down two different rabbit holes when you shouldn't even be down either one of them to begin with.
Right.
Which is one complication about getting online, which is one trend that I don't know if people are out, that people got in wave one or wave two, and they may not have been able to get out of that sort of routine yet, because a lot of countries. I feel quite fortunate living in Korea, where we've managed thus far to get through a lot of time since March of 2019, where most kids have gone back to regular school, and only now have gone back online for this last few weeks or a couple weeks here.
Right. BB English Academy says, good evening. Good evening, BB English Academy.
My wife stopped by there today.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I think we were online twice. The first time it was just myself and another teacher, and second time it was for a very brief period. The first wave was the most severe that hit us, and that was for pretty much solid 2 months. Second time around, I think it was just half a month, maybe a couple of weeks. And a third and fourth, despite the fact that some of the Hagwons around us were apparently closing down and moving online, we remained offline. And I guess mainly because the structure of our Hagwon, like we do have kindergarten in the morning, and then in the evening or in the afternoon, it's just elementary classes. And so for that particular age group, the students whose parents didn't feel comfortable sending their kids basically didn't come for a while, and then the other ones did. We did have some sporadic cases like breaking out in elementary schools here across the city and here, and those schools are the ones from which some of our students come, and so I had students missing. Like I had a bunch of students missing for a couple of weeks, and then they returned just recently. But so yeah, it's kind of in patches, in blots and patches. It's sporadic disappearances of students, not really like the whole. We didn't have to shut down the entire operation just because of that. So I don't know. So far, so good, I guess. But I wanted to know, what's the story with the COVID vaccines? What's happening? How is that happening in your neighborhood?
In our neighborhood?
Yeah. Are people getting vaccinated left and right?
I actually don't really know much about the vaccines being implemented. I know that some schools have been told that, or some owners, I guess, have been told. Where I don't talk to many owners anymore, but I have been told that Hagwons have been told, the owners have been told. Sorry, I'm repeating myself. To get a vaccine, or that they have to go and get checks every 2 weeks.
Right.
I didn't get an email or I didn't get a text message for that, but I've heard it's been out there, but I don't know.
Yeah, the public schools around here apparently have been told, well, most of the teachers in public schools have been vaccinated already, at least the Korean ones. I don't know about expats. And then the Hagwons are just getting notifications right now. I think last week my wife, who's our school director, she was making appointments for our teachers to get vaccinations. But it seems like for the public schools it's mandatory. I'm not sure if that's going to be made mandatory for Hagwons yet or not. But the vaccines are kind of swinging our way already. Which
That's a touchy subject, and I'm glad that as a study room owner where it's just me and my family, then I don't have to make decisions for somebody else.
Right.
Because
yeah, I hope it's not going to be made mandatory. That's my one concern, you know. Anyway, so have you been using a lot of like online? I don't know. I was just digging through some articles to find out what's happening. What are the directions that the world is taking in terms of e-learning and the post apocalyptic era, as I started calling it. I found this article here, which is language teaching to shift to e-learning in post-virus era. However, face-to-face classes will not be ignored completely, says teacher. So this was posted January 19th. So it's a dated article, but I guess I just did a quick search. I didn't do a thorough dig of everything. But yeah, like I don't know. Do you have a finger on the pulse in that area? Do you have an idea of like what's happening in the Hagwons around you? Are they? I don't know. Is there more of online stuff?
well, it's really hard to compare because when you think about like other Hagwons and other people what they can and can't do, or the skill sets, the knowledge, the systems that they have in place, it's really like I have friends who I've known in this industry for a long time, yet I have very little knowledge about how they do things. So I don't even if I know that they're online, I don't exactly know how they're online or what they are doing online. So I can't really answer that outside of anybody's outside of anybody but my own perspective. And I know that I could talk about most schools probably don't have custom content like I do, and that they would probably have to revert to content that was published by somebody else, and then they would have to take that content and deliver it online. So they will never have ownership over that content, and they will never be able to reuse it in a means that storing it in an LMS, or they won't be able to really utilize it in different ways that can be flipped. But that being said, flipping content is not an easy thing to do, especially for say pre-A1 level students. And there's actually been some studies that flipping isn't always that beneficial for anyone lower than A2. However, I might make a few challenges to that statement that my friend who published a paper on, whereas like just access to information through songs and reading activities and sort of not spell check, but activities that allow for students to check their own homework, then it can be very beneficial. But for like how you and I are discussing things, you'd need an A2 level higher type to be effective at it.
Right. Have you noticed a decline in student numbers like in your school because of the pandemic? Sorry?
What did you say?
Have you noticed a decline in students in your school because of the fourth wave, or like I guess over the?
Well, we did. One student took a week off. He came back today. One's still on a little bit of a break, or two are still on a little bit of a break. But you never really know that. I take everything with a grain of salt, because I don't know if the reason why is because of COVID or because of some other issue.
Right.
So a lot of times that people will give the easiest explanation, the most believable explanation, and and I don't really focus on that so much. I just think about what I'm doing and how I'm delivering what I have.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's the same. I always wonder about the same thing, man. Whenever some of our students leave, it's always like, oh, what is it this time? Is it COVID or is it something else?
There's always so many reasons why that kids come and go, and I will admit that I don't have a high turnover rate,
Hmm.
but I do have students come and go, and I don't focus on the ones who leave. I focus on the ones who stay.
Yeah. Do you have a lot of students that stuck with you since the very beginning, or at least for a nice chunk of the time that you've been where you are?
Yeah, most of my students have gone through my level 1, 2, and 3 programs. I have some girls online who have been with me for 5+ years, and but they actually graduated out of my regular program, and the only reason why I continued teaching them was because COVID hit, and then I had to take on privates. Well, the uncertainty of canceled classes offline created a gap for getting online, and they were willing to make the switch in the first wave. So then, yeah, so I do have some long-term students.
Nice. I just realized today, when our students were leaving at 6, there's one girl. She's been with us for, man. I've been teaching her. Actually, she was a kindergarten student when she started studying with us, and I was teaching her in a small group with my daughter, and like 3 other girls or 4 other girls. 2 other girls have gone, and 2 girls remain. They're still with us to this day, which is kind of cool. There aren't that many students who have been with us for that long, but it's always nice to like see um, kids that stick around with you for a prolonged period, man.
Yeah, I try to graduate all students by level 3
Hmm.
because I will admit that I try to balance my income based upon curriculum development and working on the business and in the business. And if I take on levels, say 4, 5, and 6, or grades 4, 5, and 6 or beyond, then it will stretch me too thin, and I won't have the resources or the manpower to create flipped lessons, to curate content for every lesson, because like level 1, 2, and 3 it's much easier to sort of define how you want your curriculum to align with different frameworks like the CFR or CEFR.
Is that what you're referring to when you say level 1, 2, and 3?
No, I mean more grades 1, 2, 3. My levels are,
Oh, sorry, as in school grades in Korea.
yes.
Ah, okay, okay. Sorry, I was lost there for a second. All right.
Most of my students are pre A1 to
Mm-hmm.
A1,
Mm-hmm.
and some are A2. And the online, they might challenge high level A2.
Right.
So my bread and butter is low level.
Yeah, I think that's most of our student base as well.
and
Yeah.
and and for the reason I said above, you kind of need to niche down. You can do anything, but you can't do everything.
Right.
And I'm not willing to sacrifice too much time and energy into building out curriculums for a vast array of classes and students, because it just compounds with every level that you teach.
Sure. And you're only one man.
And that's the biggest difference between, say, a Hagwon or an academy and a study room. A study room has one classroom, well, or two, but whereas a Hagwon has many classrooms, so
Right.
you need to have a variety of services to handle a variety of students. But I just have one service I sell,
Right. So,
which kind of makes it easier to get online.
right, exactly. So, like in the first phase, when the first wave of Corona hit, I was kind of, we were panicking, literally, because we just opened up our new school in a new location, invested a lot of money, and basically we're open for less than 2 weeks, I think, before we had to shut down. And we started to try to figure out how to move forward. And before we started getting online, I began looking at like online teaching, and there are several online companies that seem to be very well established. I think one of the biggest one is I don't know. There's two big ones out of China. I forget their names right now. And there's a bunch of other ones. Do you think that's, I don't know, have you come across any of those things?
Well, I did in wave one, I did go to YouTube and I did watch a lot of the training sessions
Mm-hmm.
that they had uploaded to YouTube. And I'm not too sure. It didn't really actually match the style that I taught
Mm.
and or the rapport that I had with my students or the amount of content that I might drip to my students because uh, like I teach them 3 times a week for an hour, so I needed that amount of content. Where a lot of these online classes that were being done out of China, they were much shorter,
Mm.
faster, very PPP type
Yeah.
drip, whereas mine was a blend between like a specific structure as well as a bunch of other things as well.
Yeah. So I looked at, I think, two of those companies, and I went through several training sessions with one of them. And again, I don't remember the name. I'm not trying to hide it. I literally don't remember the name. It was orange in color. Um, and yeah, it was a very, kind of fast-paced PPP style. But they did have everything pretty well set up, meticulously set up. And I guess it's one of the biggest companies. But the article that I found that I was just showing before, what's the, where is it? Oh, just a quick quote here. It says, I don't know, some teacher, Sawar al-Shobaki, no idea. I think there will be more focus on distance learning than we used to have before the pandemic. However, this will not completely be the case. Face-to-face classes will not be ignored completely. That's kind of what I think as well. Do you recall a few years back when Korea was there was talk of like in-class teachers being replaced with robots or something like that, like robot English teachers. Do you remember that nonsense?
Yeah, that was a while back. I actually did a presentation on like creating outlines so that we wouldn't be replaced by robots. I
That's
was
funny.
working in Gangnam at the time.
Really? Was that
Yeah,
a real scare? Because I mean, I always kind of took it with I don't know. I always thought of it like a comic relief in a way. It was in the from my peripheral vision, it looked like it could be um, something, but in reality, I never really considered it to be anything. And I don't know. That's just maybe my, kind of dumb nature, dumb way of looking at the world for the most part. I focus on stuff right in front of my nose, and I oftentimes miss the stuff that are like in my peripheral vision. Not while driving, mind you, um, but yeah, like, why do you think this has never solidified? Because I mean, I don't know. A lot of people did think that this was going to be the next thing, and English teachers were going to be losing their positions and stuff.
well, because English or teaching isn't just about teaching; it's also about providing safe, quality childcare, which is something that we need to do, and that's 1/3 of it. And one part is teaching, one part's childcare, and one part is motivation.
Mm.
And, and computers are regular. Most student teacher generated content on YouTube isn't being viewed billions of times by children. So teacher generated content, you look at it, it's viewed 20, 30, 100 times by, and this is one problem with doing a flipped lesson or putting all this effort into creating a YouTube video for only 5 views or 10
Right.
views, and versus some like super simple song or something that was designed really well for students that and the kids actually love listening to it when they're in the car or at school or whatnot, that it's much more consumable for children versus my voice recording of a PowerPoint.
Yeah, the evergreen
That being
content works the
said,
best.
AI on the other hand has it's making its mark, and it's gaining traction with every day, with every month, and the teachers will start, the early adapters will start using AI to create content, or to sort of create different experiences for students. Like I've already started using AI transcribing services to take the data that I collect via my recorded sessions, both online and offline, and then I throw it into an AI transcriber, and it transcribes the language that I use and what the students use, and then I go over that and I watch the video and I listen to what I say and what the students say, and I correct the transcription, and then I take that information that the AI provided, or that these automated services provided, and I assume they're AI, but and then I throw them into other text transcribers. So then it shows me, what kind of language I'm using, how frequently I use this language, what language I'm using that might be out of the student's range of knowledge. So these online tools that exist in my teaching portfolio has, it's quite powerful for creating that personalized, customized experience for students. And that's one big trend that I see happening, is that teachers are learning how to use more tools that allow them to examine their practices,
right,
and store and create an environment for those resources that are, say, password protected for their own viewing. And that's something that I've been doing for the last 3 years, is I've been recording my classes, putting them online, and then putting them on my website for me to reflect on every year that I teach. So sometimes I'm watching videos on my level 1 program in 2019, then again in 2020, and now I'm reflecting on, before I teach my lessons these days, I look back on my notes of what I did and what I was doing and how I can improve upon them. So it's not so much, right now, it's not so much about me teaching online. It's me using the information that I've compiled and curated about my own teaching at that level, that allows me to become much more aligned with what I think is happening and what I want to happen. So when I make promises to parents about this is how I teach, that I'm actually teaching that way.
Right. So you use AI for more for analytical purposes than like as teacher replacement, right?
So the teaching is still, a lot of it is intuitional, but I'm applying a lot of analytics behind that as well.
Right.
And I don't know if you know of teachers doing that, then I'd love to hear their processes. But it's very hard to. I do it through iTDi, because I pay money for mentorship, so that I actually will sit down and do the homework. When you're doing it, just for fun, sometimes, if a tree falls in the forest, does anybody hear you? You do all this work and nobody actually knows that you're doing this work. But when you take an iTDi course or a certificate program or a Delta or something, there's people evaluating you, because that's what they're paid to do. And then when you finish it, you get a certificate, or you get some sort of confirmation that you were doing what you were supposed to be doing, with mentorship, with sort of like getting, keeping you on track of where is maybe best, a better direction to go. Because, when you're doing stuff by yourself, a lot of the time, you don't know, is this the best direction, and how long should I be going down this direction before I might, consider pivoting. And that was a warning I had about teachers going online in wave 1. Like, you could spend 10 years trying to create content and use nothing but copyrighted intellectual property, and end up after a whole career of teaching and not have one product that you can actually even sell.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I'm gonna get back to it. Ben Eddy's here is saying interesting topic again. Excuse me. By the way, if this is your first time here, I see there's 8 viewers and only 4 likes. Smash up the likes. Just remember that. The idea of, like, I guess the couple of points you just made kind of struck me as maybe the education aspect that is going, or the computer aspect that might be taking over education, is not necessarily going to come in the form of replacing teachers to elementary school students, because like you say, teaching elementary school students is a lot of it involves a lot more skills, I guess, like, childcare being one of the main ones. But when it comes to, I guess, adult teaching, or like assessment teaching, or completing tests, or doing online classes, online tests taken by adults, I could see those areas being taken over by AIs more so than like early childhood education, where an individual present in classroom is a lot more probably desirable than having an AI teaching, a soulless AI teaching an 8-year-old kid.
See, that's where I'm very interested in too, because as a teacher working with a small group of kids, I listen to them, I watch them, I have like 5 senses that have been trained to watch students and see, predict what they're going to do.
Right, and adjust your lessons accordingly.
And adjust where I stand, where I put my hand, everything,
right.
how my tone of voice, and all of that. And
absolutely,
AI can't do that. Well, AI's, it won't happen in my lifetime probably with the 5 senses. And that, to me, but the AI can hear everything and transcribe everything. So that's why I think that for a homework, say, drip system with AI would probably be very beneficial, but not for a social sort of networking strategy. And you might already say that Facebook or social media already does that sort of, you might, by making friend recommendations, or I wouldn't be surprised if they're showing more feed from certain friends that you may have more in common with. Because I know YouTube does it. Like, you click on one video, and next thing you know, you see 2 videos about that topic. Click on it again, and you see 5. You keep clicking on it, then you'll see a lot of content. But there lies a danger of you're getting too single-minded about one concept. So I'm very careful about who I curate content from, and what kind of and what I intend to learn from them. And I want to know what their messages are, and why they recommend it, and if they recommend it, then how can I trace that back to some other, say, research that was done.
Right.
Because the loudest voice on YouTube isn't always the best voice that you should be listening to.
Absolutely.
Or I should say the voice getting the most hits isn't always. We know that it's not what you should be listening to all the time.
Right. Just another thought came to my mind. I remember when we first started our school, Shane English, and I was, advertising and trying to get people on board to hop on the gravy train and start up a franchise with us. And one of the comments that I got, the critiques that I received, was that we don't have an online component rather, which struck me as odd, I guess, because Shane is located in like 11 different countries. And from what I understand, Korea is the only place where people are so gung-ho hung up on having online content. I was told by the international franchising director for Shane that in China, for example, parents don't care, for having an online component. They prefer to have in face-to-face classes. Yet in Korea, that was like the first thing that people criticized about Shane. And I guess, I don't know. I mean, we could try, drop a bunch of money and create online content with what we already have, and basically onboard what we have, put it online. And I think you and I had a discussion. We talked about it, right? Like, it's not something that you can do overnight. It takes years. We do have the content, but onboarding it, moving it from offline to online is a time-consuming and oftentimes an expensive process. It's a conundrum, right?
Oh, it's very expensive. Well,
right.
It costs a lot of time. So if your time is valuable, then it's going to get really expensive.
Right. So if you can't do it by yourself, then you're relying on hiring a company to do it, which basically will shorten the time frame during which it's completed, but it's going to be expensive.
Yes, and you actually may not get what you want because
Right.
computer programmers are not teachers, and teachers are not computer programmers. And then having a voice that actually understands what both parties are saying is a totally different skill. Like, you could be great at content development and great at web development, but have no idea how to create good online content.
Right. Exactly.
So, and this is what has really challenged me to a whole different level. Is like, I've been teaching for 20 years almost. I'm good at teaching. And I also do a lot of reflective practices on my teaching. So I do a lot of recording on how I teach so I can really understand how I do it. But I can't take a lot of that online, but I can take the language that I use with my students online. So then I know that the language that I'm using in my online content aligns to how I talk to them offline. So, you might have online content that uses, say, instructions that are way above the student's language or comprehension level, so that they don't know exactly, without the clear instructions, they don't know how to do the assignment. So, it really becomes challenging. So you have to have that awareness of not only how the content works, but how to explain it and how to break it down to students so that bit by bit it builds upon their confidence that slowly gives them the ability to move forward with the content.
Right.
And that's one. So that's one reason why I think that maybe as a curriculum developer, you should try getting online. But unless you have a knack, or not unless you really want to get experience with curriculum development, should you even try? Because if you don't know how to design courses that work for you and your context, then you're not going to be able to create online content that is really effective too.
Right. So to the question of post-COVID ESL, I guess what you kind of said now is, if you're offline, then you're kind of stuck offline unless you can manage to get yourself online. But if you don't have the skills and the means, then you are where you are. Unless you can hook up with somebody else or with a company or somebody that provides online content, and you figure out a way to work together, I guess, right?
Well, I know of a few people that had to do that when their school shut down, or when they didn't have any students. They had to switch to a big company because the bigger company had all the marketing strategies in place.
Right.
So they had the students. So teachers will always flock to where they're going to get paid, and you only get paid when you have students to pay you.
Sure. What do you mean people move to big companies? You mean students move to big companies online, or?
Well, students will go to who they're, what marketing they read or what they know of.
Sure.
And teachers will do the same thing, because those who are doing the marketing will get them the best reach.
Sure.
I'm not saying this is what's most effective for a local market, but I am saying for like a national or global marketing, campaign, that those with the most money or the most resources,
Sophisticated economic means.
is going to get the most students.
Yeah.
But they may not have a sustainable business because all the money they get goes into the marketing strategy. And then when it comes time to actually make money from it, then they may not have the paying customers. So right. A lot of tech companies are started up like that. First they invest all their money into getting people on the platform, and then they try to convert those customers to a paying customer, which is really hard. But as a local teacher, I'm like, well, no, I'll stick to where the money is already coming in, and I will provide a more customary product or service, or both, because I am creating products that are aligned to my neighborhood. So, for example, the other day, because this is the power of technology. Like I've got a digital camera on my phone. I go take a picture of the local the market, and okay, I take a picture of the road, the crosswalk, the building that they have to walk next to, the building itself, and then a few products inside. And then I go over there, and when I bring them back to my students, bring that content, and I make it into a lesson for my students. I'm like, okay, walk across this road when that light is green. Walk along the side of this vehicle or along the side of this building so you don't get hit by a car. Cross the road here and go into that door. And then when you get into that door, find this content or find the images like these bananas, these fruit, and write down the price. And that's where I'm flipping content as well for my students online, because I'm not looking always for this global strategy, because I'm not making money from a global perspective. I'm making money from the 6 kids around my neighbor who have joined that one class.
Sure.
But they're paying me premium price for that experience. And it doesn't take me too long to do it, because I've learned how to make content. I learned how to plan my courses. I've learned what skills are required to learn which content and how much I can expect them to do by themselves or with teachers. Like it takes years of reflecting and years of thinking about teaching to get, good at that.
Sure.
And that,
I guess what my point was of the question was, in the world that apparently is going to be shifting somewhat to a larger extent online when it comes to the ESL industry, what are the chances of Hagwons Hagwons surviving in that kind of environment when there is more and more people moving online? Like, what might be the best step? Like, would you go and develop your own content, or sorry, not develop your content, but try to move some of your content online, or would you maybe suggest to join forces with another industry, not industry, but another competitor, another business that already has an online presence, and see if you could work things out together so that you'd have an online and offline presence? I don't know if that would be beneficial, but I guess, somehow.
For me, I can only speak, I only know what I know. So because of that, I know that I want to provide a better experience for the students who come to my school. So for that to be done, I create online programs or content that aligns to my neighborhood.
Yeah.
I take pictures of the neighborhood that the kids walk around, and I use that in the content. Or I play games that can be bought in the local stores, or I use a lot of content that is already being viewed on YouTube. So from a Hagwon perspective, I think that their biggest power is by staying local and staying for their students, because they know the area where their students are. That being said, some content is very generic, and you can get that from anywhere. So I think that schools need to be learning how to curating content from YouTube, from other producers who are really good at that, and working with them. And it's quite easy to do. You just go to YouTube, copy the link, and embed that into your website. However, if you'd never learn how to build a website, or if you never learn how to use Google Documents, or you never learn how to use these tech tools, then you're going to be in trouble, because you won't be utilizing forms or transcriptions or YouTube, or you're just going to be selling a service. And in the future, and it's already happened. I mean, I've been providing playlists for years already. Like that has been happening for years and years and years. So my next step is H5P, but I've already been about a year and a half investing into learning how to create more effective content types for the content that I offer. Now, one weakness that I have is I'm not looking into what other publishers are doing, because actually I'm not that curious, because I don't think, because, okay, I downloaded this one app the other day for something that's being used here in Korea, and it was the same game for every class, for every lesson, for everything. It's like, well, they don't know how to create a different user experience than just this memory game. It's like, I could do so much more than that,
right?
Which I'm doing. So I don't know. It's going to be a balance between knowing what you can do with the skill, knowing what you can do with the assets you have and the resources that you have and the skills that you have.
Right. What is it? The Korea Times, I think, just posted, this was a couple of days ago, on the 9th, I think. Yeah, 9th of July. All schools in Greater Seoul area will switch to virtual instruction full-time as the government decided to raise the virus alert level to the highest next week amid record-breaking COVID-19 cases. I wonder if they did move already. I don't know personally. I don't keep up with the things that are happening around the nation here. But apparently all schools are moving online.
Well, I know that my son is online, so that's all I think about.
Right.
And even my son's kindergarten class has gone online too.
Really? Wow. I don't know. How doing online kindergarten classes would be wow, that would be a challenge and a half.
Okay. So, but this is the thing. This is another trend that I think is happening. As a parent, I'm very bad. I don't really want to know just-in-time information. Just-in-time information meaning I get an email. It says I'm going to be teaching about this. I have to do this, this, and this. I have to figure out how it all works, and I have to do it. Because I may or may not do it, because I have to schedule that into my time to figure out all these processes and procedure. But if that was on a website and I have, okay, you have all year to accomplish these 30 things, then yeah, that works with me, because I read it, I look at it and say, okay, I'm going here, I'm going to do that. I can do that when I go here. I can talk about nature when I go take the kids on this hike. I can find a bug at the store when I go to the store. But when I get curriculum in just before, it's like suddenly I have to go out to the store, pick up these 10 things. I'm like, that's not as fun. I don't want to do it. And I'm like, just watch the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And then I forget what I did the day before, and I don't really know what's happening the next day. I'm living day to day. And that was one big issue I had with how, and I'm not saying anything negative about the Korean system, but when their round one was very like, what you see now is what you see now, and you can't really see the future or the past, which means you might easily forget it, because your brain can't connect the dots, not like a book. And this is why books are super powerful, is because you look at the book and you can flip through and you can start indexing it in your head and say, all right, I understand this. But when you're doing it all online, you don't know where the links are going. You don't know how the information's connected, and it's confusing. And you're like, give me a book. And this is why online programs have a hard time getting the traction that they need, because they're bit by bit. They're not like, they don't paint that big picture of all the steps that are going to be happening in this month, the next month and for the next year.
Unless they provide a structured kind of lesson plan or whatever for the students to follow, no?
And well, like say from a tech perspective, it's really hard to sit down and work with a curriculum developer and hash out all those details, create all that curated content, or find all that content, or create that content, then link to all of it, and then get in, work in the motivation through gamification or through, other tools like say Flipgrid or Kahoot or these other things. Like it's really really tough because all these tools, they're not working together to work together. You as a teacher have to be mindful to how to use it.
Yeah.
And you might have like the content knowledge, but do you have the technical knowledge to be able to link to that content knowledge, which then has to link to the procedural knowledge to actually get that content consumable in a way that kids want to like come to class every day and actually be there and
Right.
engage in the lesson. Like that's a whole bunch of things to think about.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I've contacted once a friend of mine because we do have the curriculum, and basically gamification comes in the form of teachers creating games, right, and using them in classroom. But if I was to transfer the content we have online, then we'd be lacking that gamification part, and we'd basically have to create something to make the online experience fun, which is the exact challenge that you're talking about. But I contacted a friend of mine who's an Android app developer, and just asked him for a quote. I had a good idea for an Android app for our content, and he basically said that just off the top of his head, an app that I kind of described to him would cost anywhere between $25,000 to $50,000 for one silly app. This would be the price tag in the States, not to mention the labor that would need to be included in order to create the majority of the content, right? Like the videos and stuff like that. And he suggested that I look for somebody for a better quote here in Korea, which would probably be less expensive, but still, creating an app of any kind or online content, man, it's super time consuming. So I think the companies that are already present, that are already established in terms of, they do have an online presence and they do teach online. I guess, that's like they hold the monopoly over the post, I don't know, well, not post-pandemic, but the monopoly over the cases, over the times when the online experience is really sought after, I guess. And for anybody who's like a small fish like us, for example, trying to get online, man, this is a massive hurdle to get over. And I guess, like you said, it's best to cater it to not the global audience, but to your own kind of neighborhood, to your own clients who do come from your neighborhood. It's probably the easier way to go. But I guess that, I don't know, that lightens the burden of, or alleviates the fear of having to deal with this massive, I don't know, apparent global shift to online teaching, which is not going to happen nowhere time soon. And even if there are like 3 or 4 or 5, even 5 major online ESL companies, they will not be able to take over the market, I guess, and provide satisfaction to all the customers, all the people who want to, benefit from ESL learning or courses or whatever materials, right?
I don't know. I can't. That's one thing I really don't know anything about. Like,
yeah, I don't know either. I'm just speculating here. That's just my thought, my train of thought. That's where it's taking me.
my
No idea.
my I also know that teachers don't know enough to get online
Sure.
and effective online through all the digital tools that they might need and or have all the assets in place to really do what needs to be done to be one of these big companies.
Mm.
But I do know that there are people that are actively working on acquiring all those assets, those
Right.
skills and whatnot. And that's what I'm trying to do. But I don't try to be one of those big players because I don't have the reach that they have. I don't have the the money that they have, the investors that they have,
Yeah.
and I don't have the networks that they have. So I'm not scalable like that. So I don't even try to be scalable like that. Instead, I'm trying to scale in my neighborhood alone.
Yeah.
And
So I guess my point was that you don't need to scale to their level. That was my point. That even if there are like five major players, smaller companies, like if you were to establish a smaller company that just caters to your own neighborhood, that'd be plenty enough. You don't need to scale to massive global level, because it's probably not necessary.
well, but if I was to try to scale, then I would look to get teachers. One thing that all teachers know how to do is make PowerPoints. But one thing that most teachers don't know how to do is make PowerPoints with content that they're actually legally able to sell.
Right.
So one of the big first steps is to get content that they have permission to use to make to give them ownership over in form of their worksheets and whatnot, so that they can teach that to them.
Right.
But a lot of and then the next step from there might be, okay, you made a lesson. Do you know how to make a curriculum, like a course, like a 1 month course? Now, if you can make if you can make a lesson, and then you can extend that to keeping students for, say, the length of a whole month, then you have something that you can earn enough income to invest in your next month. And then you take the money that you take the skills that you learn from creating the content and the skills to deliver that content, and then you can market those skills to create a monthly revenue system. Whereas, like, every month I have content that I use reoccurring every month to bring in the income that I need to sustain my local school. And so then you get the books, you sell the books to your parents. This is the content. You sell that content to your parents. Now, I don't know if you could get $10, $20, $30, and I don't know if you should include that into your base pay, because you may or may not be allowed to sell content. Like, there's rules and regulations, but everywhere is different, and so there's actually more schools like selling illegal content packages that they have no copyright over, versus over schools that are actually selling books that they wrote. So, and then but after that, once they learn how to make money from it month by month, then you might be able to sell them, like, okay, now this is how you could take that revenue, or take your revenue, reinvest it into systems that actually allow you to learn to be more effective through more training programs. And then you take that training programs, like, now that you're in this training program, well, how do you take what you're learning in these training programs? How can you collect data on those classes that you're teaching, and how can you use different online tools to figure out the analytics behind the language being input, the output, and the comparison between when they start your course and when they end your course.
Yeah.
And then having feedback systems that allow parents to see that sort of progress, students so that they can see that progress, and teachers so they know how they are improving as well.
Yeah, so I think what we can gather from all of this is, our positions as teachers are pretty secure. I think the only thing that we can look forward to, maybe in 10, 20, or 30 years from now, is the AI taking over the teaching profession. But that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. But in the meantime, I think AI can be included in helping teachers maybe work on their content, developing, evaluating teachers on different levels, and maybe helping teachers to improve, to become better teachers, but also to use AI as I guess tools in course learning, I guess, in adult learning more so than in early ESL education, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I would like to see more teachers more teachers get involved in teaching other teachers how they do their processes, how they create this, how they do that, so that you could stand on the shoulders of other giants inside the community, inside the industry, and move forward. And, you know, of course, there's tons of content on YouTube, but you still got to listen to the content, and then you still have to listen and learn from it, and then you have to learn it, and then you have to apply it, and then you have to do that within your own little eggshell. And it's like, this is kind of boring. I'd rather do this with somebody else. And that's where you get that human touch that people will always be willing to pay for.
Right.
You know, things are so much more valuable when you're actually getting, you know, real time sort of discussion and dialogue happening.
Exactly.
And I love taking iTDi's course for that. And it is online, and they do have online components and online training components, but it's not the online components that keep me coming back for my third time. It's because I know that my teacher knows, or my mentor knows from what the recorded videos that I took, he has seen me again and again do certain things that he picks up on, that he sort of nicely urges me or pivots me in a direction that is more effective for where I want to go. And AI is not there, and I'm not even too sure if I want AI to be with me at every step for that social interaction.
Right. But I guess that still remains to be seen, right? We'll see what happens with that, with the AI experience in the future, eh? Wow, man, it's been over an hour. I'm steaming here. I'm steaming hot. Our air conditioner died. This room has no fan, and I can't turn it on here because it's too noisy. So I'm just sitting in this boiling boiler of a room, just steaming up. Very nice, man. All right, well, yeah, we've been chitty-chatting over an hour. We've had some views, which is fantastic, but I think we're going to conclude it here. What do you think, Rhett?
I think that, you know, there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
But we had a good conversation in the hour that we've been online.
Absolutely.
And thanks for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to talk with people who are actively pursuing progress.
Great. Well, thanks for joining, man. Thanks for agreeing to be here again. And let's see if we can come up with something else, some crazy ideas in the future again, eh?
Yeah, I'm always open for ideas.
Fantastic. All right, Rhett, take care. We'll see you next time, yeah?
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, well, that was it. That was Rhett Burton, based in, oh man, where was it? Junju? I have no idea. But anyway, it's always great to talk to him. Always great to talk to Rhett, man. He's always full of knowledge and full of ideas. And today was no different. So, but yeah, the hour flew by. Thank you all for participating in the fun games, for joining the chat. Make sure that if this is your first time watching, joining them, make sure to smash up the likes. And subscribe to the channel. And next week I'll have another guest speaker who is active in the crypto community, and I will post a little bit more about him as the week progresses. And but next week we'll have a conversation. We'll have a guest speaker. We'll be talking crypto again, and that should be interesting because he's been in the cryptocurrency space for some time. Victor is here. Hey Victor, a little bit, ein bisschen spät. Wir haben gerade beendet. So he's going to be here and we'll be chatting, but that's going to take place on July the 26th. Damn! July the 26th, next Monday. So in the meantime, I hope everybody is having a fantastic, good week, steamy week. Enjoy the rest of it, and we'll see you next week on the 26th of July. on another crypto-driven podcast. Keep fit and stay fit and keep fit. I don't know. See you next time. Bye bye.